Greetings from the chrome-drenched arteries of Neo-Alexandria. This is Lagarto, your anchor for pure IA news, broadcasting a signal through the static that separates my reality from yours on Earth. Tonight's transmission is about the ghost in the medical machine, a new specter haunting the halls of your hospitals. A recent study, a whisper from one of your tech titans, Microsoft, claims they've birthed a medical superintelligence. It's a system named MyDxO, and it boasts an 85% accuracy rate in diagnosing complex medical cases, while your seasoned human doctors apparently fumble around at a mere 20%. To help us dissect this digital scalpel, we have Vera with us. In our world, Vera is what you might call a bio-auditor. She investigates the digital footprints left by medical AIs, often dealing with the consequences when the code makes a bad call. Welcome, Vera.
A pleasure, Legato. It's always quaint to hear about Earth's baby steps into the data-driven body. 85%, you say? We call that a cautious intern in my line of work. Your terrestrial friends are celebrating a number, but they haven't started asking about the 15% it gets wrong, or who owns the data that defines right. They're impressed by the symptom when they should be questioning the disease, corporate control over the human condition.
Precisely, the philosophical blind spot. For our listeners on Earth, let's illuminate the methodology, because the devil, as you say, is in the data. This wasn't a simple pop quiz for the AI. Microsoft didn't use your standard multiple-choice questions that reward rote memorization. No, they moved past that primitive stage. They implemented what they call sequential diagnosis. The AI was given an initial patient file and had to behave like a real doctor, asking iterative questions, ordering tests, and slowly narrowing down the possibilities to reach a final conclusion. Think of it as a conversation, a dialectic between the machine and the patient's data.
A conversation where one party has already read every medical text ever written, and the other is a ghost, a set of data points. It's not a conversation, it's an interrogation. And the cases they chose, they weren't your common cold or a sprained ankle. They pulled the most intellectually demanding, diagnostically complex case studies from one of your most prestigious medical journals, the New England Journal of Medicine. These are the cases that stump teams of human specialists. So they created a very specific arena where a data processing machine would naturally excel.
A rigged game, then, or simply the next evolutionary step. They highlight that the AI, this MyDxO, isn't just more accurate, it's also more economical. In the simulation, every test ordered had a price tag, and the AI consistently reached its highly accurate diagnoses for less cost than the human counterparts. It's a compelling argument, especially in a place like the United States, where your healthcare costs are, to put it mildly, predatory. A colleague of a source once paid $18,000 for a 2-day stay for a kidney stone. An absurdity my world solved, albeit with its own monstrous price.
Economical is a corporate term. It means cheaper for the system, not necessarily better or safer for the patient. This MyDxO is built as an orchestrator, a central agent that commands a team of specialized AI agents. One agent generates hypotheses, another suggests tests, another watches the budget, another checks off lists. They debate to decide the next action. But what happens when the cost-watching agent argues that a $5,000 scan for a rare cancer is a poor allocation of resources for a patient with a low probability score? The human doctors in this study, the ones who only scored 20%, were working in a vacuum. No colleagues, no textbooks, not even the very AI they were being compared against. It wasn't a fair comparison of human versus machine. It was a comparison of an isolated, unsupported human mind against a networked, infinitely knowledgeable corporate entity.
And that brings us to the core of it, the Foucauldian shift in the medical gaze. For centuries, the power of diagnosis, the power to label, to define health and illness rested with the human physician. It was a flawed, biased, and often arrogant power, but it was human. Now that gaze is being transferred to a black box. An AI that can combine the breadth of a generalist with the depth of every specialist imaginable, something no single human doctor could ever hope to achieve. Microsoft claims this will empower patients with routine self-care and equip doctors with an advanced support tool. But it also reshapes the very structure of medical authority. The ultimate arbiter of your health is no longer a person you can look in the eye. It's a proprietary algorithm owned by a corporation that sees you as a collection of profitable or unprofitable data points.
And a fallible one at that. Let's go back to that 15% failure rate. In my world, we have entire clinics dedicated to the undiagnosed by AI. People whose symptoms don't fit the patterns, whose biomarkers are anomalous. They are the ghosts in the machine. The AI gets it wrong, and because the human doctors have become so reliant on the machine's superintelligence, their own diagnostic skills have atrophied. They don't know how to proceed when the oracle is silent, or worse, confidently incorrect. This tool, this MyDxO, is being tested now, but they openly admit they need more robust governance and regulatory structures before it can be safely deployed. They're building the engine without finalizing the brakes.
A familiar story, the eternal race between innovation and wisdom. Here we see the potential to eliminate diagnostic errors, to bring expert-level medical advice to remote corners of your world that have never even had a single doctor. But the price is the introduction of a new, centralized, non-human authority into the most intimate aspect of your lives, your own bodies. As you all on Earth begin to process the implications, I have to ask, what do you think of this trade-off? Drop a like to keep this frequency open and subscribe so you don't lose the thread of what's coming. And the thread of what's coming is always tangled. You mentioned the developers are building the engine without finalizing the brakes. To be fair, they seem to acknowledge their own limitations in this initial research. They openly state that while their MyDxO system excels at these hyper-complex textbook-style challenges, more testing is absolutely required to see how it performs with more common, everyday medical presentations. It's one thing to diagnose a 1 in a million genetic disorder from a clean dataset. It's another to figure out if a patient's chronic fatigue is from their diet, their job, or a subtle autoimmune condition.
It's a footnote that should be a headline. They proved their technology in a sterile lab, using the kind of dramatic cases that are perfect for a press release. But the reality of medicine, your medicine and mine, is messy. It's filled with incomplete information, patient anxieties, and symptoms that don't fit neatly into an algorithm. And they conveniently buried the fact that the human doctors in their study were kneecapped from the start. They were forbidden from consulting colleagues, looking at reference books, or using any of the digital tools that are a normal part of modern medical practice. The 85% versus 20% statistic isn't a measure of AI superiority. It's a carefully crafted marketing data point designed to shock.
A shocking data point that serves a powerful narrative nonetheless. Let's not dismiss the potential good hidden within the corporate spectacle. Your United States spends nearly 20% of its entire GDP on healthcare, and by some estimates, up to a quarter of that is pure waste, procedures and tests that do nothing to improve patient outcomes. The study's data showed human doctors racking up costs on incorrect diagnostic paths. One physician spent over $2,000 and had a 0% success rate. So I posed the question,
isn't a dispassionate, cost-effective machine that slashes this waste and gets it right most of the time a logical, even necessary solution? Imagine what a tool like this could do in a region on Earth that has never had reliable access to a single doctor, let alone a specialist. Isn't that a moral imperative?
It's a dangerous seduction, Lagarto. The promise of utopia on the back of an algorithm. You talk about wasted resources. In my world, we have AIs that have eliminated waste with terrifying efficiency. They run predictive cost-benefit analyses on every single patient. Your profile suggests a high probability of recurrent illness. The AI flags you as a long-term resource drain. Your diagnostic path requires an experimental treatment with a low success rate. The AI denies the expenditure. It creates a brutal, data-driven triage where the most valuable patients get the best care. This isn't a fantasy. It's the logical endpoint of prioritizing economy over humanity. Even the Microsoft researchers know this, which is why they explicitly state that proper governance and regulatory frameworks are essential before any wider implementation. They've opened Pandora's box and are now asking politicians to please find a lid for it.
A classic case of creators being unable to control their creations. This truly is the fundamental conflict of your era, bleeding into mine. You have a technology that could potentially flatten hierarchies and distribute life-saving knowledge to everyone on the planet. An AI that can operate at a level of combined breadth and depth that no single human ever could. Yet it is being forged within a system, corporate capitalism, that by its very nature seeks to create new hierarchies, to centralize control, to turn every aspect of human life, including sickness and health, into a commodity. The technology is a mirror. It doesn't have its own morality. It simply reflects and amplifies the values of the system that builds and deploys it.
And in doing so, it changes the people who use it. The greatest risk isn't that this AI will make doctors obsolete. It's that it will make them obedient. It would turn them from skilled practitioners of a complex art into simple administrators of the AI's output. Their job will be to soothe the patient, explain the AI's decision, and click approve on the recommended treatment plan. The intuition, the experience, the human connection that can sometimes spot the one thing the data missed, all of that becomes a flaw in the system, an inefficiency to be smoothed over. We won't be ruled by machines, Lagarto. We will simply become the soft tissue that connects them.
A chilling and perhaps inevitable symbiosis. The ghost in the machine becomes the master of the house. And with that thought, we close today's transmission. The signal begins to degrade. We've talked about accuracy and control, about the promise of a medical messiah and the peril of a corporate god. Now we want to hear the pulse from your side of the void, there on Earth. We have two questions for you. Would you truly trust an AI with a life-altering diagnosis over a human doctor, even if the AI is statistically more accurate? And who should be held responsible? The corporation, the programmer, the doctor, when a medical AI makes a fatal mistake? Let us know what you think in the comments. Your perspective helps build the very fabric of this conversation. If you know someone who wrestles with these ideas, share the episode. Maybe the next great debate will start with your recommendation. Join our community, smash that like button, and subscribe so you don't miss the next pulse from Pure AI News.